Check 1, 2. There we go. Yeah, here we go. Nice. What's up, guys? Hello. A few Canadians already in here. What's up, guys? Uh, I apologize. I just saw that this live stream was scheduled for actually 11 a.m. We had an hour time zone difference problem. It is actually 12 here where I am, where I had it scheduled to pick up there. So my bad on that. Yeah, miscommunication with the rest of the team. But anyhow, yeah, we're doing these live streams a little bit differently because after the first couple of experiments or so, we wanted to do, we want the podcast to continue to be kind of its own contained unit. So that it's easier for like interviews and that kind of thing. And then we'll have basically these Q&A live streams afterwards so that you guys can just talk with me or the team or whoever else we can get around here. That way this could be focused completely on the conversation and not have to go through, I'm going to read the news and then I'll talk to you. And then I'm going to do this and then I'm going to talk to you. It just creates a disjointed thing. So fire away. If anybody has anything they want to talk about or questions about like teleport or what we're doing over here or anything else, set them up inside the chat there. Yeah, the Canadian post workers stuff. That's rough because this is the time this is exactly why the strike is occurring right now, is that this is the time of the year when that strike can be very effective for the workers to negotiate, because this is the time of the year when the most shipping is going on. But it's brutally hard on any of the small businesses that are trying to get something out the door, because their shipping costs have either increased now just automatically 25% by going to like private services or unsubsidized services, or just not able to ship in general, which means you're losing the Christmas season where your sales are very often 3 to 4x whatever you do any other month the rest of the year. So it's really, really hard. When will Tangled come out with colored filament? So here's the thing. Tangled has always been about a price optimization. And we know from within our production farms and within the filament that we buy and our relationships with manufacturers, that black PLA is probably about somewhere between 50 and 70% of the material that they ship. It varies depending on how many colors they have and how long that tail is. So, but if you're working around production optimization, you take the biggest chunk first, and then once that's fully optimized and rolling as fast as it can go, then you add the second biggest chunk. That all being said, we are in the spring when we have the new Tangled launch, which is, I think we'll hit $10 in like January or so, conceivably. Might be some push and pull on that, but we'll see. Once that's up and rolling and has the scale that we're liking, then we will also introduce the additional colors again and go back to gray and that kind of stuff. Because right now the issues with that is just the amount of waste and changeover, and wonk filament is not the greatest solution to it. But anyhow, we were getting into for the podcast. Yes, no, we are not doing the podcast twice in a day, podcast twice. So yeah, this is just kind of a discussion follow up and that kind of stuff. Because here's a secret for any of you who are doing like the YouTube thing. Full produced videos get a higher view count than published podcasts. When you're making YouTube videos, the structure of the video and the timing of it all, the first 15 seconds of it all, are stupidly important. And the live stream, where the camera turns on and you say check 1, 2, and you say what's up everybody, and so on and so forth, is a very low view getter. It's really good for all you guys who are subscribers who want to engage with the channel and that kind of stuff, because we get to talk and do stuff. But it's really bad for view count. So when we're doing podcasts around these topics that we want to get kind of broader reach, putting them into a live stream hurts that. But in order to do Q&A with you guys and talk with the community and let you all get a look at us, this is a better format for that. So we're splitting those two out, which is why we're doing the two different things. Vast CNC, keep up the black. I'd rather have material options than color options. Black, white, gray, all I want personally. Oh, fair. Appreciate that. No, yeah, I know for a fact that Tangled will only ever have like 5 colors, like the 5 primary colors, maybe 7, like black, white, blue, yellow, red, green, that kind of stuff. Um, but the additional material, PetG, should also be launching next year. Yes, it should be launching next year because it's also part of the road to $10. PetG is cheaper to source than PLA, but it's more difficult to process. So the trade-off on that is kind of a scale operation kind of a game. Other questions? Let's see here. Any plans or ideas for going beyond $10 or lower with Tangled long term, aside from what you already mentioned in the past? Cart before the horse. $10 consistently, continuously, without sales and that kind of stuff is quite difficult to do. Like even right now, even the biggest filament suppliers who are larger than us and that kind of stuff are running sales right now or promotions that are running at $10, and they're doing it because of scale, because they know here at Christmas they can sell a ton of filament, and they get down to $10, but only temporarily, and then into the rest of the year they'll bottom out at like 13 or 14. Bottoming out at 13 or 14 is very deliberate, because in order to have a sustainable business, you need to have about a 20 to 25% margin. And coincidentally, a $13 roll of filament, the cost of producing the filament is about $10. And then you have the $3 on top, which is the actual operating margin that you need. So they can't go lower because they got to pay the accountants and the administration and buy advertising and so on and so forth. So you have to have that 25% margin. With us going down to $10, the efficiency in production and marketing has to be so high in order to still retain some sort of profitability that it's just going lower will be tough. That being said, there is a world where it can go down to like maybe even 7 or potentially 6 with kind of what we see on the roadmap. But that's like we have to be producing exceptional amounts of filament, and we also have to be doing it well, because as we start scaling up, like Tangled has always been kind of the side project for us, and we want to make sure that we don't make cost the primary goal necessarily at the expense of the material, because there is nothing worse than your machine jamming because of an invisible problem with the filament, like there was some contamination in it or something. This also, by the way, is kind of an excuse to go back to clear, because clear is a very easy way to like troubleshoot us. Like, oh, there's a speck of dirt in the filament or something that jammed my machine. That's great because we can observe it. Those visual indicators of defects in filament, even the large manufacturers cannot identify. So you don't know if the machine failed because of the filament or because of you. Now, process control, make sure there's not contamination in the extruder. That's an edge case where that can happen. But in black is bad because that error where contamination gets into the filament is not visible. So anyhow. What's up, Adam? What makes PetG difficult to process? Extra heat, harder to hold diameter. G Fixler. PetG sucks water out of the air, and everybody knows about having to dry your spools of PetG when you're running them in general. But it's called hydroscopic, which means it sucks water out of the air, and it's an exceptional amount of water. And if you now take an extruder from the 0.4 nozzle that you have on your printer where you see bubbles in it, to then take it to an extruder that extrudes 2 to 3 millimeters diameter line of filament, now the bubbles get really big. So the extra processing of PetG is drying it out, mainly drying it out and then keeping it dry. PLA is much more forgiving in that regard. PetG has some temperature processing considerations to be had, but they're not terrible. But yes, processing PetG, both you have to, and it also increases the amount of it's less forgiving because yes, we have to make sure it's totally dry when it goes into the machine, and then when it comes off the machine, it immediately has to go into vacuum sealed bags. There's no flexibility in time between any one of those steps. All of them have to happen at once. And with all of them having to happen at once, that introduces a kind of a scale requirement. Like we have to run this machine with 3 people on it or whatever else it was for 2 days continuously. Otherwise, we lose all the efficiency. Whereas like PLA, a person can like run the machine, store up large spools of the material, and then somebody else downline can like downspool it and that kind of stuff. So it's more flexible, and of course doesn't need to be dried because we're in an environment where our air is drier than almost any other air on the planet because we're in high desert. So you can't find it. A desiccant pack won't help you if you spool stuff down in Florida. But up here we have like less than 20% humidity, which is as low as filament dehydrators really ever get anyhow. Other questions. I've got 750 PLA, basically got 9.5 tone of resin for free. It runs fast. No, yeah, absolutely. People will run sales on PLA to get rid of it, but they're not sustainable. Well, as soon as somebody drops below $10, it's a gimmick or a way to like get rid of excess inventory. That's almost why they always run that. There's a few people who are just kind of dumb and will go out of business. You see these uber cheap filament brands that come and go and rebrand and turn around and all the rest of it. They're making it in like Mexico and pushing it across the border, or like in Cuba and pushing it up into Florida. So that's how that's sustainable. But that's how that's done. That's not how it's sustainable. And their margins are so thin that they can't really grow and they can't really improve their filament over time. So when we're doing Tangled, we want to make sure that Tangled has a direction to grow, because yes, we have this low cost filament, but then we also have a lot of expertise in what makes filament good. Like when we first did filament, like the thing that kind of sparked it was a video about the 5 problems that filament manufacturers have, like putting a little tag at the end of the filament that causes you to jam. Those problems are very easy to fix, and filament manufacturers, especially the cheap ones, just don't pay attention to. So yes, is there people who go even cheaper? Yeah. Are they going to be around here in a year? Probably not, because I've already seen 4 or 5 of them rise and fall in the last 2 years. If you want to view an organization that does like filament really well operationally, Polymaker. Polymaker is an exceptionally good manufacturer of filament, just kind of holistically. Like their test data, their quality control, all that kind of stuff. And this wasn't meant to be like an endorsement of Polymaker, but like Polymaker does good stuff. They do it right. And they do it all the way through the chain, from their marketing to their distribution to how they deal with customers and that kind of stuff. Like they get it. Quite frankly, when we did Tangled, it was meant largely to be in the kick in the pants of U.S. filament manufacturers, because Polymaker is a Chinese manufacturer, and that's fine. They have a U.S. presence now. But the U.S. manufacturers, I would say, were just being lazy, and were not creating the type of value or innovation or price cutting that they should. They were kind of riding the wave of 3D printing, and it was growing and carrying them along with it. And that just frustrated me that they weren't then continuing to improve, because it's unsustainable. If you don't change, then you're eventually going to get replaced. And since they weren't changing, we came along, and I'm sure we're hurting some people, and I'm okay with that, because they should if they're not getting better. You might see a rise in sales if you get a tariff which affects the price of items from overseas. Will you be able to keep up with demand? Right now, like demand has, yes. Quite frankly, the tariffs would be good for us for Tangled. We have not made a strategic decision about that. I haven't thought about the implications of tariffs with Tangled this whole time, because it's still irrelevant to us. Like with Tangled, you don't want tariffs to be a crutch that your business is based upon, because they will change. In 4 more years, they'll go a different, well, actually, the tariffs haven't really changed in 8 years, but the relying on regulation in order to protect your business is a stupid business model, because regulation is a fickle god, depending on how politicians are feeling on a given day. So we would still be comparing ourselves to like Chinese manufacturing and be like, how can we be more efficient to fix this stuff? and then just keep on pushing it lower and lower. Our shop uses white PLA primarily for our printers with brass nozzles. Do you see increased wear on nozzles? When do I know the nozzle is toast? So you, you will really know the nozzle is toast when your print quality drops off. Yes, the white dye wears out brass nozzles faster, but the only way of knowing is to run calibration prints on the regular, which will define that your machine is out of whack. And depending on what machines you have, that would be reliable. But like in our system, machines will periodically print test prints. The system just controls it so that the machines are periodically calibrated like every couple of days or so to where they will run out a print to verify that the machine is still have all of its specs in place. And these prints are designed to weed out particular little areas. So that's how we deal with it. Visually observing it, your print quality really has to drop off the roof. And to be fair, the wear for brass nozzles is not that bad. Very often a nozzle will jam before it actually wears out. It'll get too much carbonation in it or something like that. So there's that. Nozzles are getting a lot more expensive now because all of these high-speed machines have very bespoke sort of nozzles, which is fine. They have lower jam rates, sort of, but it's a whole thing. Vase CNC Polymaker is also really great with community outreach, communication. They have a large American facility. Yeah. Polymaker does a lot of their work well. Dr. Lester the Smith, I signed up for his teleport but got no response. What is the response time? Oh, right now the guys and I are rolling through onboarding meetings. So right now it's probably 3 to 5 days, I think, in getting an onboarding call scheduled for teleport. The reason we're doing onboardings is just because to make sure teleport can be really intimidating for new folks. Or from what we've learned with like the Etsy and Shopify and that kind of stuff. So rather than just having it open signups, the first batches of users we wanted to onboard directly just to show off the nuances. And quite frankly, right now at the beginning of launch, the app changes really quickly. And the documentation doesn't necessarily change as fast as the app. So as we're going through kind of this rough hewn early stage, we want to walk you guys through it so that you know, what all the capabilities are so that you can fully leverage it, and also not be scared by some ambiguous part of the workflow. So like matching files for the first time, or does ShipStation actually work, or how do I do a test order so that I know it's all working? Those type of things are the things we want to do in onboarding. But yeah, right now it should be like 3 to 5 days or so to get to folks. Though at the same time, there is a restriction in the number of people who are coming on. In the sign-up form for Teleport, you have to have a store and contact information and everything else. So if the form was filled out incorrectly, that can cause an issue, or your store may not qualify because with all of the applications, we can't really hit anybody. We should send a notification message of that, but that's a possibility as well because there's just so many folks to deal with on that one. Have you looked at other NatureWorks NGO grades? Yes. Historically, like inside of our print farms, we've used NGO 850 a lot, which is kind of their ABS replacement once you anneal it. But all of NatureWorks resins are very, very expensive. PLA is just very, very expensive because it's very expensive to process. It's very resource intensive to convert sugarcane into plastic, as opposed to converting oil into plastic. So the scale is not even remotely close. So their PLA will always be more expensive than the fossil fuel based plastics like ABS, PetG, and that kind of thing. And ABS and PetG are also those plastics, the manufacturing industries around those plastics are larger than the entire 3D printing industry. So that's the difference in scale that we're dealing with. It's ant on the side of an elephant, this PLA stuff. PLA is trying to ramp up more, but like here's the thing with all the bioplastics. There is not enough biomass on the surface of the planet to produce the amount of plastic that is eventually going to need to be consumed. Now, here's the thing, guys, this is what people always mess up with sustainability. The whole human race is not up to first world standards yet. There's about 2 billion people on the planet who live like this, where I flip a switch and a light turns on, sort of, or I have a roof over my head. Everybody else are still in third world, second world type of conditions. So there's still 3 times more people who are going to want a cold beer, a refrigerator running, and that kind of stuff. So the amount of energy consumption or the amount of energy generation that is necessary in order to bring the rest of humanity on up to standards of living that we expect as a standard of living right now is just phenomenal. And then you compound that with also the energy consumption of AI, which, to be fair, is centralized to kind of the first world nations right now anyhow. The amount of energy needed is just absurd, to where we cannot build enough windmills or even necessarily enough solar panels to get it done. Solar panels right now, yeah, this is a side topic. I'll move on to something else. Also, I'm excited that you are including third-party parts. This will help out a lot of people. Yes. This has probably been one of the main requests that we've had on the apps over the last couple of months is third-party parts. So, and the problem with them, and the reason we kind of avoided it at first, is that number one, we wanted to make sure that print quality and workflows were all reliable, making sure we're printing what you asked us to print well. We've gotten over all those humps and everything's kind of stable and rolling, and we're going through this Christmas season right now. The heave-ho of Christmas right now. Next week is Black Friday. I don't know. I'm going to look a lot more bedraggled next Sunday when we do this. But where was I going with that? Third-party components, we will have chargers, lamp pucks, lamp light bulb versions with probably corn bulbs, and then screw kits. It'll be a screw kit. It won't be you won't get to pick off a menu. I need one M4, one M3, this, that, and the other thing. No, we're going to say, like, here's a pack of 10 M4s. Make your design so it uses all the M4s. That kind of a thing. But yeah, that'll be third-party components, and you'll be able to add them on in basically the matching process inside of Teleport. That will also only be in Teleport. It will not propagate to the Shopify or the Etsy. That functionality will only be in Teleport. Going forward, Teleport is going to be kind of the primary app because it covers everybody. So it's going to become kind of the single source of truth, and it will get the newer features first for sure, and maybe even only. So all that. Okay, let's see. What are other questions? Other questions. What do you guys want me to go over? Can you tell us anything more about your CAD dev? Oh, the AI CAD stuff? That's a kind of a new year sort of release. We have a baseline for it. It's actually really cool. I talked about this in podcasts before. The problem with AI model generators is that they're not precise, but their CAD right now is stupidly cumbersome to where I should be able to speak into a CAD program and have a certain dimension box with a hole in the side or something pop up pretty readily without me having to sketch it, model it, throw it out, so on and so forth, center the hole, so on and so forth. That's a very good AI baseline. Now so yes, we will be releasing. We don't know if it's going to be a product or if it's going to be a project. And the difference between those two is that a product will charge you money for, and a project is one that we'll throw out there for free and see if people care. I don't know, because like the demos we've seen so far are really good. But I don't know. But that all being said, the CAD software is a secondary priority to anything that has to do with running a 3D printer. So Teleport, our Kraken production system, any of those kind of things, that is where the software focus goes, because those are the things that improve the product for you guys. There are a lot of CAD options out there, and quite frankly, there are going to be enormous numbers of AI model generation companies over the next couple of years, because it's just starting to flip to where people are realizing the value of that. Oh, the huge value of that. CAD is so cumbersome to learn. To get AI model generation is going to be a boon to product creation. But anyhow, have you considered pre-orders of Filament in the third party to move capital forward? Ben, yes. One of the model changes with Tangled in the new year will probably be monthly batches that are pre-ordered so that we know how many orders are there. One thing we have also considered is, quite frankly, just doing a Kickstarter for like the $10 grade filament. We're so close to it right now that we kind of want to do pre-orders of that. And Kickstarter is also a great platform to where they'll show you to more people, especially inside of 3D printing. The problem is that Kickstarter takes an 8% cut of whatever you raise. So they just added $1 back onto it. So it kind of doesn't work there. We still have card processing fees and that kind of stuff, so it's more like Kickstarter takes 5%, but it's fine, 50 cents on there. If we get to $10 and we squeeze that out, then we're back up to $10.50 just to pay for the Kickstarter fees. So it's kind of a darned if you do, darned if you don't. We could run the campaign on the Tangled website. But what we're effectively probably planning on doing is that in January, we're going to do a big Tangled release where we're going to just be like, hey, we're set up. Here's 1,000 to 2,000 spools of filament. We're going to run it at $10 and make sure that we sell all of that. And then we have to do that for 2 months in the spring. And if those batches go well in the first 2 months, then we can probably activate Black on an ongoing basis to where it'll ship basically next day. Or within the week. We might do it like as weekly batches because that's easier to maintain and sustain. But yes, you're absolutely right. Moving the cash forward is something that needs to be done with Tangled. It's not necessarily about the money though. It's mainly about just the demand knowledge, demand projection, so that we know how many spools need to be made at a given time so that we're not wasting resources. Dave Temperley, you might look into T-lights in the third-party stuff. Ooh, yes, you're right about that. T-lights are one, I think. We have a big old master list of like 20 or 30 of them. Comment if you have like third-party parts that you want to see. Because yes, T-lights are one of those odd ones that we would miss or be like, not very many people do that. To be fair, once third-party components are up and live, there's something that's really easy to test. And they're also something really easy to make YouTube videos around. Because we get to run through them all and do a demo of that particular item over here and then like release negatives. This is the other thing too. When we release these third-party parts, we want to release basically STL tools that you can pull into models to subtract the void or pocket for that part. So like if you have a light puck, well, we want to make something that cuts into the bottom or cuts into the side to where you can shove that puck in the way you want it to. Or same goes for chargers. That way you can model the object. Maybe it's like a turtle, and then you want to have a wireless charging turtle. So here's a thing for cutting a slot for a wireless charger into the top of the turtle, something like that. So building out sort of the ecosystem for that stuff is a thing we want to do to make sure the modeling is as easy as possible. How much assembly do you offer in addition to 3D prints? At this moment, here at launch, we're not going to have assembly with third-party components. We'll drop them in the box. Assembly will come. The challenge with assembly is the fact that people can make it really tough to assemble, and each model can be different in how it's done. So we don't know what the workflow is for assembly in order to qualify and approve the part for assembly. So that creates a situation in the Teleport app where we have to have like, I would like this to be assembled, submit for assembly approval, that kind of a thing. That's almost building a whole nother version of it. Like as far as development time and hours into it, building out that workflow in a way to where it's really clean probably will take as much as like building out like the first versions of Teleport. Because it's tough and it's delicate to do that choreography. But we do want to do assembly and we recognize the value of assembly, but steps at a time. Third-party components will be included. People can shove the puck in when they get to them, and you'll have to design products that are like IKEA. and have a photo in your product listing that shows the assembly process that people can reference on your Etsy or eBay store. That's perfectly reasonable. It exists well, and IKEA's done fine making people put their own stuff together. So I don't think that'll ruin it. Magnets and rubber feet and pads are on the list of third-party components. Magnets are hairy because there's so many different sizes. Yeah, there's so many different sizes. And the magnets can also confuse people because there's print in place and then there's inserted and glued in. And even though we'll say, hey, these magnets have to be inserted, somebody will upload like a print in place model or something like that. And we're like, we're not placing the magnets inside the model as it's printing. That messes with workflow. Okay, Zachary, what brand of filament do you recommend at a low price ranging from 10 to 16? TangledFilament.com. It's hopeless shill all the time. Other than that, it's fully dependent on you and what you're doing. Brilliant, Dave Timperley. Brilliant. I've already modeled a T-light in my CAD so I can build around it. Oh, nice. Good deal. You should send out $33 3kg filament spools to a handful of YouTubers. Think the $33 kg is gold, will be easy large volume, though will be a hardcore production constrained, I imagine. Then, the 3kg is, yes, fantastically efficient to produce because you're effectively doing 1 spools of work for 3 spools of labor. So get into the $10. In the new year, it will almost certainly be the 3kg spool. The 1kg spools have too much labor attached to them, even if we go spoolless. The spool's a problem too. Guys, let me talk to you about spool manufacturers real fast. Spool manufacturers are terrible because if you think about stuff in manufacturing, a spool is not that complicated and also something nobody cares about. I've done this video. We did a video back like 6 months ago that like boring is good. And we talked about like a gate. I should have talked about spools. The amount of innovation needed in spool manufacturing is ridiculous. Again, inside the United States. We have a spool manufacturer who we basically have to fax a check to get the order in. That is how bad they are. And then we have another spool manufacturer who screwed us last fall when their mold broke for the spool. And they neither would give us a discount for how being late and tardy or for making the thing wrong or whatever else it was. But it's a flippin' spool. It's a spool. It's not that hard. But it apparently is. And since nobody cares about it because it's a really boring, uninteresting type of item, nobody works on them to improve them. And I was talking to a guy I know who also does filament, and he was talking about spools. And he's like, I found this other company that does it. And I called them up, and I said, what is the cost per spool? We want to order 1,000 spools from you. And they're like, where are you coming from? What are you doing? What is this thing? Go ahead, fill out this form. And I'm like, you have this one spool. Tell me what the cost of the spool is. Oh, it was like pulling teeth to where I still haven't actually, we still haven't actually closed the deal. And I think I got what the cost of the spool was, but then they're in Europe, so we don't know what the cost of shipping is. And even though they have my zip code, they can't quote shipping for me because that's outside of process. Just this wild corporate bureaucracy around a flippin' spool. And no, we're not going to make our own spools. Well, we will. We probably will, but we shouldn't because we got too many things other going on. But anyhow. What large print farm do you recommend? Guess. I would say Slant 3D does a pretty good job. They work hard over there. They're doing okay. They're doing okay. Unaffiliated, totally affiliated. I seem to have issue with texturing or stippling. I think I'm fairly hardware limited. Fuzzy skin is nice but not consistent. I'm going to say that's outside the purview of this channel. Troubleshooting individual 3D prints are not really our forte because it's always dependent on the filament you have, the machine you have, the settings that you have, the slicer that you have, the other 200 variables that go inside of there. My catch-all is use fuzzy skin, and if it's not working well enough, make the fuzzy skin thicker. Increase the height of it. That's the quickest one I have there. The rest of it is finagling settings, which is the joy of the hobby, I suppose. Um, Nadar Mavor, can we get more CAD video? What do you mean? We do CAD videos like every week. We just did a CAD video. We just did a design for on the Vase mode building blocks. We do lots of CAD videos. We do not do like CAD tricks because everybody and their grandma does CAD tricks. And that's not something that we can add value to in the ecosystem of YouTube. So we're never going to be like, this is how you make a hole inside of Autodesk, or this is how you make a pipe inside of SolidWorks, or something like that. We will never do those videos because they're not useful, and those answers are out there already from better resources. But we have considered doing CAD-like content to where we do a deep dive on like what is the ideal size of a chamfer on like the Tangled testing channel. Because the Tangled testing channel is going to need other types of content on it. But again, there's a limited amount of time for all this stuff, guys. So it's just, it's tough to do it all. Let's see here. What is optimal size nozzle for vase mode in order to print cup-like dishes? Depends on the design of the cup. I wouldn't recommend doing dishes in vase mode. You can maybe do a popcorn bowl in vase mode, but the bigger the nozzle, the better. You don't print your spools? No, we don't print our spools yet. We have, I'm taking credit for this. We designed one of the very first master spools in like 2018. We partnered with a filament manufacturer, Bioplastics, and we designed one of the first actually manufactured and utilized master spools. And I would say that Bamboo Lab's spool is highly inspired by that master spool design that we did because it's a quarter turn lock. They did it worse because their two halves are different. Our two halves were the same part. So if you want to go deep into the bowels of our YouTube channel, one of the first like 10 videos is about that master spool design because not to brag, but it was freaking brilliant. But that was the first spool design we did. And then last year when we started up Tangled, we did a highly efficient manufacturable spool design that was cardboard flanges with a 3D printed core, which we might bring back. But the spool manufacturing it's not interesting, and to get it down cost effective is just not. We have the scale to do it, but there's better things we could do with that machine time effectively. Sounds like I can do the legwork and send you a bunch of prepackaged, non-printed components in bags, and Slant 3D team can drop the bag of parts along with 3D prints that are print on demand. That is only if you are a production client. That will not work through the print on demand system yet. And I have no idea the timeline of when we would allow people to effectively add stuff to our warehouse to where we would then fulfill it. That again is kind of another workflow change because the challenge of that is your little weird thing. I shouldn't say that. These little weird things, these odd things, like somebody sent us 10 items to store for the next year that have to be findable and pullable and pickable. Now we can scan those into the warehouse, sure, but we also have to add them into the software and all the admin. Again, this expands like the size of the system in order to make sure that when a part shows up in the mail, people recognize what it is, scan it into the warehouse, and then are able to scan it back out of the warehouse as they add them to components. So having you guys provide third-party components is something that, again, we certainly want to do because it is useful to you when you have these custom kits and like custom inserts and that kind of stuff. It is useful, but it's difficult. This, like print farms, what we're doing, guys, is really, really difficult because even like right now, the problem of people being able to upload anything and then us having to print it with effectively generic settings is a very, very difficult problem because people will find the edge cases and water flows into the cracks. And that's the most important part of the system because if the part is not what you expect it to be, then you won't continue to use the system. So we have to be super careful about making sure that the core part of the product continues to be stable and good and growing before we add on this other stuff. And there's there's an infinity of add-ons. Like we could add every color on the planet and every material on the planet and so on and so forth. But do those add significant enough value to grow the app? That's the decisions we have to make on like growth team side to make sure we're doing it well. Sounds just as bad as buying software on the enterprise level. Must be referring to the spools. Let's see here. Let's see. You can 3D print an adapter. Parts, lamp clip-on holders for shades to attach the bulb. Yes, those are probably coming. Though I would recommend most shades, that'll be good for like pendant lights and that kind of stuff. The bulb holder that we will probably use will effectively be a pendant light. So it'll have a screw on the top, so as long as you have a flat ridge on the bottom, you'll be able to screw on the top, and the lampshade or like pendant light will attach to it. Thanks for the printed component bags. Other questions? Let's see what else is going on that we need to go over. Yeah, the teleport is live. We're getting people onboarded. Guys, here's the thing. Like, if you are, I cannot overemphasize, if you're a current seller, if you're a current seller on Etsy and you have ads turned, I say this all the time. If you're on Etsy, turn on your ads right now. I know many of you will have said, I've run ads before and they didn't do anything. Turn on ads right now. This is Black Friday week. And then put all your items on a 5% sale. That notifies all your followers. Turn on ads, turn on 5% sale. And if you're wanting to use us right now. Because as of Black Friday, there's a high probability that our capacity and our lead times will start to get stretched. So if you want to get on board, you want to get on board right now. We are trying to get anybody who's backlogged on Teleport in and or scheduled in like Monday and Tuesday. And by the way, we will be working on Black Friday as well, getting people onboarded and also producing parts. If you're on Etsy, turn on your ads. They will work. Let it run for at least one day. Let it run for at least 3 days. Budget yourself like $50 and let them run for at least 3 days. You will see a result. I can almost guarantee it. Because Etsy has to spread the love, because they are fundamentally, as a platform, they have to get sales to you, because so many small sellers are around that one person can't fulfill all the orders. So Etsy's not going to push all orders to one person. They're going to distribute them so that they know demand orders are fulfilled and orders can be made. Let's see here. So you think the Tangled for Slant 3D has the hot dog is for Costco? Oh, yeah. No. Yes, the model for Tangled right now, as far as we're concerned, is very much a hot dog at Costco. We will make it sustainable, and we will do everything we can to make sure that hot dog or that chicken stays within the price that it needs to be. But we're going to get you on the upsells or the membership. We have been toying with and playing with membership on Tangled for a while, but we haven't figured out how to make it work well. Because if we put the $10 filament behind a membership, then that becomes a point of friction to get into the filament. And we're not like well enough known right now to where we can demand that up front, because it's just a point of friction for buying the filament. It's very likely that membership will activate at some point, and that will both give you access to the filament and access to the gadgets and gadgets and maybe even files that we would start putting on Tangled. What should I sell on my Etsy store? I only have a few sales. So here's the thing. The business model of 3D printing, and everybody misses this and doesn't realize this. The business model of 3D printing is to create as many different products as you can, as many variations of a product you can. You create 10 items, and then if those don't sell, you create 10 more, and then you create 10 more. This is how you are successful with 3D printing. Once you have one item that is successful, you create 10 variations of that product, because the cost of product creation is effectively zero. It is how hard do you want to work. That is the only restriction on your sales. How hard do you want to work? Once you have a product that is successful, you create 10 variations of that. You find out the 2 items now that are successful of that, and then you create 10 variations of that. So you start off saying, I'm making organizers. You make 10 organizers, and then you're like, oh, people are ordering these for fly tying. Cool, I'm gonna make 10 fly tying organizers. Then you're like, cool, that are ordering from the purple flies, so I'm gonna make black fly ties so they could see them in there. That kind of a thing. That is the business model that everyone should do. You freaking shove as much stuff out there as you can, and you find out what works, and then you focus on that. Anybody trying to say, I have an invention, I'm gonna 3D print it, and I'm gonna go from there is gonna be whacked for sure. Okay. Lines of LabTech or Co-Air Group. The filament lines of, what do you think of the filament lines from LabTech Engineering or Co-Air Group? They're fine. An extruder is not a complicated machine. Most extruders are made too small. Almost all extruders are made too small. Like entirely, and including us. Like for the last year since we started Tangled, and one of the points of expansion that I've wanted to do to make us really efficient is I want an extruder the size of a truck. And I know where the extruder is, and I want to get it, but the problem is it's the size of a truck. And the other issue with it is that taking that extruder has to extrude diameters like this, which means you now have to draw that down to 1.75, which is kind of, it's very, very difficult because as you pull it, it starts to stretch in weird ways. But you also have to cool it, which means you need like almost, not a quarter mile, but let's say a quarter mile of cooling tanks for this thing to throw out filament that fast. Or you have it run really slow. Filament production is just, it's so slow right now. And there's a number of ways of fixing it, but extruders are made too small. And this is all stuff we've talked about before. I might be avoiding them for backlash of saying it. What are we talking about? What am I missing? What question am I missing? Somebody give me a thing. I missed something. Let me scroll up and stuff. It's Radu at this point is 9. Hey, that's it. And that's a broad question. What are you guys talking about? Somebody comment the question. Nate and Radu, you guys are going back and forth on something. What's up? Skip some questions. What's the question I skipped? I'm going to go on to the next one here from Andrew. Is making hard TPU filament part of the 5-year plan? Yes. Yes, we do want to get to hard TPU because for some reason people have not made a high durometer TPU yet. Canadian gemstones, no problem. Thanks for coming by. Appreciate you guys watching. Nate, just saw an article saying that government wants slicing software to auto-report firearm components. Have zero clue if that is true, but wondering if your thoughts or something like this was mine. I don't know. I haven't seen that article either. It's still impossible. Here's the thing. That might have been the university research project around identifying gun parts. I think we talked about that on live stream a couple weeks ago. But the identifying gun parts inside of 3D printing software will be effectively impossible because you have to know all the guns and you have to know all the 3D printed guns, which means they have to have the model shared. It's a silly thing to try to chase down. It's also a silly thing to try to chase down because I don't know what world, in your particular country, the government may want to have so much oversight that they want to do that, but in the States, that'll never fly. And real gun parts can be made with CNC machines way easier, and it's not a problem. It's just 3D printing is the shining thing for somebody to focus at and think it's a thing. There's a lot of research projects out there that are completely pointless around 3D printing, but they're done because it's 3D printing, which is trendy. But they have very little insight around how the industry actually works. So I hate to disparage academics, but academics are very out of touch of what the actual reality of the problem is. So they see like a headline, it's like 3D printed guns are dangerous. And they're like, we should research how to protect people from 3D printing guns. And it's like, that's missing the whole point of the problem. Anyhow. Have you considered using pellets instead of filament? What's stopping that? Pellets don't work in mass production. So the pellet extruders increase complexity of the machine, and at the moment decrease the quality of the prints, but that'll get fixed at some point. But they increase complexity of the machine, and the expense of turning pellets into filament, which is a highly controlled, highly reliable feedstock, is trivial. So pellets are a dead end. The amount of cost savings that they provide is negligible in our context, where we're extruding our own filament, and every major print farm will end up extruding their own filament. Anybody who is, I would say that anybody who is constrained in product design by the cost of filament is not charging enough for their products, or needs to find a better product. Because right now there are fantastically successful 3D printing companies that are sourcing filament, and they're sourcing in batches large enough to where they can scale up and do what they need to do. What's up, Flochi? What has been hardest and most fun part about running a 3D printing manufacturing plant like Slant? This is a stupidly hard problem. To make anything out of the blue is a factory that has never existed before. There are not workflows, there's not prerequisites for it. So it's been brutally painful to build Slant, quite bluntly. The fun parts about it are seeing the stuff that people create and seeing the successful businesses that come out of it. Because like the operating thing for me has always been, when I was coming up through school and that kind of stuff, if I wanted to build a product, I had to already be rich. I had to get a mold, find China, learn how to get suppliers working, and all the rest of it. I had to do everything. I think what we've achieved with Slant is the ability for a college kid to just design stuff, to just knock out those 50, 100 designs in his spare time while he's drinking a beer or whatever else it was, and post them on Etsy and potentially create a really cool product. And that has never been possible before. The ability to manufacture something for free or perfectly on demand to where your inventions can get out there, that's deeply fulfilling in the fact that that flattens the world so much. And even though we're still exceptionally small compared to the manufacturing industry, it creates this chink in the armor to where somebody can break that open and replace the way stuff is made in a very substantial sort of a way, and open up that creation in the way that like digital tech has opened up apps and that kind of stuff. But yeah, the creation of the company is miserable. I cannot overstate that. Like I think Musk said he was referencing somebody else, or somebody said building a company is like eating glass while staring into the abyss, and it is. You have to induce pain on yourself while looking at the very real possibility of just not at all coming to nothing. Like that is possible. And I hate to be that doom and gloom about it, but like if you want to build a real company, that is eventually a state that you'll find yourself in, because it's way harder than people realize. There are plenty of people, and there's plenty of ways of making money in a company or in a business that is fairly low stress. I would even say that like using us as a print-on-demand solution to it is fairly low stress. But like and that's kind of the reason we created it. But there's a difference between creating a business and creating a company. A business is, I'm going to sell some hot dogs on the corner, and I know everybody wants hot dogs, and we need some more hot dogs. It's kind of like Tangled. But there will always be problems that will come up with that, but most of them are survivable. Building a company, you're creating a much larger set of ambitions and requirements on yourself. So like the difference between a business and a company is that a business can be like a lifestyle brand, where it's like, I love tying flies, I'm going to tie flies and sell them off, and I'm going to make a living from it. I'm not going to say that's low stress, but it's lower stress. Building a company, now you're putting on the responsibility of like, okay, how are we going to get to a point where we can hire 2,000 people? How are we going to make this bigger? Why was last month flat and this next month not flat, and all the rest of this? So there's just higher expectations on building a company that increase that stress. And I think that's a delineation that people don't realize. I think starting a business can be fairly comfortable and fun. Starting a company will eventually turn into something painful, because you just have higher goals and ambitions with it. And it's very tough to coast up to $1 billion. Like, oh, this is so much fun. Oh, I ended up at $1 billion one day. Oh, how'd that happen? I don't know of anybody where that's ever been the case. We got about 4 minutes left, guys, and then I'm going to cut it. We actually thought these things were only going to be a half hour, but it's going for an hour again. Let's see here. How much can you win companies? I'm not sure what that question is. How much can you win companies to utilize 3D printing? I'm not sure what that is. Companies are very slow to change. So 3D printing still has years of adoption curve to go through. Why are you instead of why are you going the plug-in thing and making a factory that can build everything instead of going after specific clients, industries, or other version of a more closed portfolio? That answer is probably too long for the amount of time that we have left. It is mainly because it's more, here's the thing. Yes, I could close off the print farm and we design cool products and sell them and that kind of stuff. Go in like Gantry or Out of Darts or Z Bailey Designs, those kind of guys that you've seen around who are doing internal 3D print products and they just run an internal print farm. It's a very lucrative way of doing it. And it works well and all the rest of it. The reason we do the service is because it has far more impact. Again, going back to the kid in the dorm room. The kid in the dorm room can't build a giant print farm to produce his item. And can't learn how to ship and all the rest of it. So us doing it as a service enables so many more people to create that stuff. So rather than us kind of going after like the quick cash of like, oh, we could design this really cool thing and sell it. And like, we got this big YouTube channel, let's just design products and sell the files or whatever it was. That would be a short-term kind of a view. Whereas we think it's way more valuable and way more impactful to create a service so that other people don't have to build a factory every time and build all the infrastructure, so that more things can be created. Yep, Telemer. I'm aware of Telemer. I'm going to leave it right there. Take 3D printed parts and add other components. We're working on that. Do you have an ecosystem to... What's up, Steve? Steven? Do you have an ecosystem to help makers take 3D printed parts and add other components? Yes, that's coming to Teleport here in a month or two. Hey, Supercraft, what's up, Serang? What are your thoughts on the future of additive manufacturing versus other traditional methods versus CNC injection molding? Injection molding, you have a $50,000 upfront cost and then you get your first part. CNC machining is just expensive and always will be, plus more wasteful, mainly because of the reasons it's more expensive. Subtractive means you use more material than you actually need. Yeah, Steve, people are flying by, and I'm like, I'm not catching it. But like, yeah, what's up, Steven? Prior to starting, Andrew, is it worth starting an LLC or business entity prior to starting e-commerce stores with our 3D prints and with your service? Or is there $1 per month where it'll prove out there is worthwhile biz? I want to start an LLC. Start selling. Just start selling. Get an Etsy store, go up. You can do a 1099K on your personal tax return, and it's fine. I have no idea what the dollar value is when you want to switch to an LLC. It's when you want to pay the $100 for the LLC. That's when to do it. I do recommend that the decisions of when to create a company are too contextualized. So yeah, but you can start selling immediately. You do not need any of that paperwork to start selling any of this stuff. Curveball, if you could wear any one color shirt the rest of your life, what is it? It is weird. Like, normally I wear black, but you know, it's weekend, so going crazy. But no, black. It's black. Black goes with everything. It's Slant 3D. I'm wearing black. Is it possible that you could ship my products to Amazon FBA? Yes, we do that all the time. We send pallets of stuff to FBA all the time. So yes, you have to go through the production workflow for that one. All right, we got 30 seconds left, and then we're gonna shut this baby down. That's been the hour. Jeffrey, thanks for coming by. Any last words? Let's see here. Did I get all the things? Last questions. There's that. Have a good one. See you, Nate. All right, cool. We got 15 seconds. See you later, Steven. I'm sure I'll hear from you later this week. Da Vinci, see you later. See y'all, guys. Thanks so much for tuning in. We'll see you next week. We're going to do these live streams on an ongoing basis. But have a good one. See y'all.